Hi, everyone. Here is my disclaimer. Any information you hear in this interview may not represent those of the station or the host. Please seek the counsel of your primary care physician for any information or advice. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. Folks, you're going to want to listen to my phenomenal guests because I have phenomenal guests on Chatting with Betsy, and that's why you need to subscribe to Chatting with Betsy. If I have to toot my own horn, I sure will. I have with me today Dr. Nancy Wiley. She was an orthodontist in Florida for 27 years. She is author of Divine Trust, a practical guide to end suffering and find your way home. Well, I'll tell you what, that title alone catches my eye, okay? And perks up my interest because who wants to suffer? And aren't we all trying to walk our way home with the least amount of suffering as possible? And with that, I want to welcome Dr. Nancy Wiley to Chatting with Betsy.
Hey,
welcome,
Betsy.
Dr. Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great interview, introduction, and I want to thank you and your guests. And I can't wait to talk with you. I'm just so chomping at the bit.
Oh, I just love it. Nancy, Dr. Nancy, I'm going to ask you what I ask all the authors. What motivated you to write this book? And I just want to tell the audience real quick, you lived in Florida. And you lived near the Parkland school shootings, that horrible tragedy, and that affected you, the people you knew, obviously. So please tell us what motivated you to write this book.
So Betsy, you don't know this about me. I'm just going to tell you two things that we have so much common in our background. One is I have a special needs daughter. She is 23, and I think your son, his name is Joshua, right?
Right.
And he's like 30-ish something.
38. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So that is something, and just from one parent of a special needs to another, I mean, good God, that really helps, strengthen our core. I mean, that's the gift. That's why they're there, is what I believe and what I've been affirmed in my through my spiritual practices, number one. And number two, my mom passed away from Alzheimer's, and I was the youngest of four, and she and I were the closest. Like, we were two peas in a pod. We became Reiki Masters together. I mean, so many things. But why I'm bringing these two things up is, one, to tell us what we have in common, which we can come back and circle back to, but two is my mom died in January of 2018, and her funeral was actually February 9th of 2018, and I was the one who made it through that funeral with the least amount of stress, and I did the best. My dad suffered, my sister suffered, my brother suffered, and the fourth child, he had already passed away. He was also special needs. But it was 5 days later, after her funeral, I'm sitting in my clinic, actually on the afternoon of February 14th, 2018. My orthodontic practice was about 1.5 miles away from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland. And I'm working in the back, kind of thinking to myself, wow, I really handled my mom's funeral great. I'm so proud of myself that I really felt all the spiritual work I have done, I no longer suffer. Right when I'm thinking that, a mom standing next to me exclaimed, I just got an alert. There's an active shooter at Douglas. And so we breathed in like, and then we heard sirens and helicopters. Betsy, if I told you we stopped working because we were getting reports from students at the school of what they were experiencing firsthand and witnessing, and no one was coming into the office after we got that. But when I did leave that day to go home, I saw all of, like, maybe 30 to 50 cars pulled up alongside the roadway, which is usually 2 lanes, and half of the car was in the road and half the car was on the sidewalk or the median. So these parents, 30 to 50 parents, had just abandoned their cars because there was gridlock, and they walked the rest of the way to the school, hoping that they would get news, and they were frantic. So 5 o'clock the next morning, I got confirmation from my office manager that we lost a patient that day, and one of our staff lost her sister. But moreover, everybody was in shock and disbelief and suffering. It was about 6 weeks when those students started coming back for their regular orthodontic appointment, but you could see there was something vacant in their eyes. And at the time, I also had an adult psychologist patient, and he said, you watch, they're going to start committing suicide. And I'm like, I don't understand that. They lived. And he said, no, they're going to have survivor's guilt, or they're going to feel severe anxiety, like they'll never be safe again, and then they just can't cope any longer. So sure enough, that's what happened. And at the same time, Betsy, are you still there?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. At the same time, starting in January, when I'm leaning over my mom's hospital bed as she's, dying from Alzheimer's, my back starts to become very painful, and it progresses and progresses. And I just try to ignore it because I have a practice, and I'm going through there. I have to be support to all my staff and my patients through this time of turmoil, and me feeling like I'm the rock because I no longer suffer. I know things, spiritual, sacred knowledge that somehow I've mastered. And I'll go into it a little bit later, but me feeling like I'm the rock, I'm, moving on, pushing through my pain. So I guess it was about in March, I was going to a chiropractor to try to work through my pain. And finally, it was so terrible. And I kept telling my, the pain was so terrible. I kept telling my chiropractor, it's getting worse. I can't even breathe when I get up off the table. She goes, you got to go for an MRI. So I went for an MRI. We got the results back, and we find out, unbeknownst to me and unbelievable to me, I have 17 bulging discs and 4 frank herniations of my discs in my vertebrae. So I make the decision that, I don't know why, I use everything that I teach in my book, Divine Trust, to think to myself, well, this is happening for a reason, because I love being an orthodontist so much. I would never sell my practice. I would never give that up unless there was something pushing me out of there. So I listened to my body, and I put my practice up for sale, which sold so quickly, to a friend I had known for 16 years who was looking for 16 years for a practice, and he lives, guess where, in Parkland. So
wow. You can't plan this stuff, right?
No, absolutely not. It's like there was this divine hand behind all of this. Well, here's where it gets even more amazing and why I wrote the book. So at this point, I realized I no longer suffer. I have mastered divine trust, or trusting in a power of the divine, where I know without a shadow of a doubt, I am certain that everything is unfolding ultimately benevolently to the Creator's mind, not to our human minds, but when you look at it through the Creator's mind, it's all in a perfect path, all meant to be with allowing and letting us have free will. So, there's this big whole overarching message here. But so I sold the practice. This is no joke. 4 days after my last day of transferring all my patients to this new doctor who's incredible, and walking out of there, I had rented a 2-bedroom condominium for a month just so I could get my bearing. And it was about 3 hours north of where I lived, in a beautiful place called New Smyrna Beach. So I was planning to have like a downtime, and I timed it so that as soon as I got there and I unpacked, I would be starting a 4-day spiritual retreat with a program I'm in called Your Year of Miracles. So the first day we were told to set the intention, like, what do you want out of this 4-day of a spiritual retreat? And I said, God, I don't know what my next goal is or what you have in store for me, but I want my next divine assignment revealed to me in this 4-day retreat. So we're in a process that, it's different teachers come through the whole 4 days. It's like 2 or 3 teachers a day. And on the first day, we're in a meditation. And I'm in deep in meditation, which I've been doing meditation, all different types, for 45 years. So, I have a lot of practice and a lot of skill in that. And I'm in a meditation, and I hear, you're going to write a book on divine trust. And I'm like, I'm a scientist. I'm not an author. Writing is my weakest point. Why would you want me to do that? So that's all I heard, and I'm arguing with the divine. So day 2, we're in another process with another teacher, and now it's way more detailed. It says to me, we've worked with you your whole life. You are on this path. This is your path. You've mastered. We've worked with you to become a master at divine trust. This is what you're going to write about. So many people need it. So I didn't argue. And day 3 of the retreat, I heard nothing. But as the book will relate, if you don't hear anything, it just means maybe you're trying too hard. You just have to relax and allow. On day 4, I'm in another process with another teacher, and I heard, okay, you've accepted your divine assignment. Here are the chapters. We've outlined the book. Please get up and write these down. So I outlined the books in the chapter, and then the retreat's over. Like the next day, I think it was just ending, even on the day it ended. You won't even believe this, but my sister calls me and says, oh, my God, I think this is it for our dad. He's in the emergency room. Do you believe the emergency room was 8 minutes from that condo? So I got to spend that whole next month being with my dad, having the most quality time probably of our lives. And he did ultimately pass away about 4 weeks later. And on the day he passed away is the day I started writing the book, which wrote itself through divine inspiration. In 5 days it was completed. And that's my story. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, that is really I'm at a loss for words. I want to say phenomenal, for lack of a better word. But, when the Spirit moves you, divine trust, you got to do what you have to do. What otherwise, as someone I know will say, the cosmic baseball bat is going to come right upside your head and say, hey, I'm getting your attention. You need to do this. And, when you said, Dr. Nancy, about listening to your body, I have told people that so many times. Listen to your body, because if you don't listen to your body and what it's trying to tell you, it's going to make you listen. You'll end up in bed with some kind of an illness or something if you don't listen to your body. Like sometimes, you know what I think, Dr. Nancy? This is my opinion, and I know in my own life. Sometimes we just want to be so busy, we don't want to listen. We don't want to listen to divine trust. We don't want to listen to what's going on around us, what the universe has to say to us. We try to stifle our feelings. We don't want to feel what we feel. And we need to feel our feelings. We need to recognize if we're grieving, if we're sad. I know that the more I tried to resist being sad, the more sad I felt. So now I just go, okay, I feel a little sad right now. Let me feel sad. And then I feel better.
Right, honoring yourself, your feelings.
Yes.
And then you actually process through things so much more easily. I just love what you're saying. And, before we got on the call, we started talking just briefly about how sometimes we think everything's our fault, and we blame ourselves, and we we go into, down a rabbit hole. And I do think it's partially individually instilled in us, but also collectively. I remember ultimately, I've tried different meditations with so many different teachers, but my main teacher, I just want to give credit to her. Her name is Jetta Molly. She said to me, I was driving in traffic and I saw a little like hedgehog or something run out and get run over in the roadway. And I was like crushed with guilt, even though I didn't hit it, that humanity hit it. And I told her how bad, and it just made me feel so guilty and terrible. And she goes, why? Why do you feel guilty? Why do you feel it's, and I said, I don't know. And I had to stop what I was doing and really process through, like, why did I think that was my fault? Why do I think everything? And then I suffer. I suffer for someone else's, it's not they are careless. I mean, they really couldn't stop hitting it. It was in this massive rush hour traffic. But I accept and take guilt on, or I used to. And I had to work on myself. And since that came up before we even got on the call, I thought that's a sign that we should talk about that. And I think it's pervasive. And so many people say, oh, I'm sorry. There's so many people that do that. And they say they're sorry before they, that they didn't even do anything. And so I do you have anything you want to say about that?
Yeah,
I know that.
You are. You know what, Dr. Nancy, you are so right. And I know my audience has heard this before, but it belongs with what you're saying. I felt guilty, unjustified guilt, I called it, for 1 year after my husband died because I felt guilty. I picked out a terrible hospice. And I would ask Matt every night to forgive me. And then I had an epiphany. The 1 year passing anniversary of Matt's passing, I felt him say to me, Betsy, I'm okay. I'm not thinking about suffering. I know you fought for me. Now go live your life and stop wasting your energy on feeling guilty. Do what you're supposed to do and go fly. And I felt such a relief, like, that, because, and especially with caregivers. I haven't met a caregiver yet that has not felt guilty about something. Feeling guilty because we need time for ourselves to recharge. Then we're not with our loved one. Feeling guilty, maybe I should have, could have, would have, and you just drive yourself nuts. And I tell caregivers you have to let go of the guilt. And, because we have the power to choose to be a victim or not to be a victim. And I decided this year was one of inner healing. Your book that you wrote fits right in with my inner healing this year of, you know what, we all have the power to be victorious.
Yes. And understand, I mean, that book is so powerful, Betsy, the book that was written through me. I really cannot take credit for that. When I read some of the passages, I'm like, dang, I know that I didn't write this. This was actually written through it. My hand wrote it, but it's otherworldly. That book is so profound, and it shows me it has golden angel wings, and it's going to fly on its own, and it's going to light up the planet like 2/3 to 3/4 of the planet of the knowledge that's in that book. So powerful. And it's so powerful that it soothes and smooths it acts like a balm, literally, to take away any guilt you might have, any pain or suffering. It just removes it completely if you can assimilate the truths in the book that are very simple yet so profound. So that book is an actual antidote to anything that we're going through in humanity. So I do think if we could get that out to your listeners, and thank you for saying that about it, that's a very huge testimonial to the book and the material that's in it. It's meant to do just that, is to help and soothe and nurture and calm and just take away all our pain and suffering.
What do you recommend, Dr. Nancy? Can you give an example from your book that someone can use? I don't want to give away all the book because I want people to buy your book, right. But like, give a little tease. I call it a tease, sure. Of how does someone walk their way home with less suffering? Because it seems that so much is going on in this world, so much right. suffering going on. Teenagers, young children are even feeling anxiety and depression. Suicide rate is up. And people, I mean, the pandemic, thankfully, it brought mental health awareness to the forefront, which should have always been there anyway, but people got a taste of what it's like to be lonely, to be depressed, and or in pain, and they're still in pain. So, yes, I'd like to hear some advice that you have in your book or recommendations.
Well, it's no accident. None of what's happening in the outer world, the pandemic, the war in Ukraine, the political divide, the way, the hatred in the country, and how if you're not labeled and put into a group, you're hated by the group you're not in, and mass shootings, crime rate, suicide rate, divorce rate, everything's up. But on the flip side, so is the amount of people learning to meditate, to find mindfulness apps, to do yoga. That seeking is at an all-time high as well. People are looking for the antidote, and my book is foundational in that. It's not the only thing you can do, but boy, does it help and make the foundation for which all spiritual basis is built upon. But here's what it boils down to, Betsy, is that one, your listeners, each one of us individually have a responsibility to take. Are we going to suffer? Are we going to wallow in that, or are we going to look for the antidote? The whole point of all of those painful things is to push us to find the antidote. It's provoking us. One is, I believe we created on a collective basis to take responsibility for that. And two is to individually get ourselves out of suffering. What is the antidote? So the book starts out with laying out the divine the divine plan and the way the whole world is built. So it's called the model of the universe, the model of reality. And to learn that first so we can hang a mental construct onto it. And then it slowly moves us into like who we are. What are we? Are we just bodies that, live a life and then die? Or are we more than that? And of course, you and I both know that if you've done any inner work, you know that you're way more than a body. Right. And that's the whole point, of being here, is to wake up to that. So my book outlines that, and then it starts out right away, almost chapter 3, into teaching you how to communicate with this energy that holds all things. Now, I'm a scientist, so I have 6 advanced degrees or certificates, 3 from Columbia University. So that was also something, like we are trained to look at our 5 human senses. If it's not reproducible in those, it's not real. So we are actually trained out of listening to our body and our intuition into, looking at our 5 senses, not our inner senses and what our body is telling us and our feelings. We are trained to ignore them. So at least in the scientific world. So I don't know if, what your degrees are, but and your education, but I know that as a scientist, I'm trained out of that. So it was luckily that I started learning meditation when I was 16, and all those years of first I did Transcendental Meditation, which is where you close your eyes and you repeat inwardly a mantra that has no meaning. And with not getting much movement on my needle after that, I tried another type of meditation called Holosync, which is brainwave entrainment, where you put your headphones on. It's supposed to use science to create what, like a Buddha or a monk that had been meditating 50 years, his brainwave. Well, I had no movement on that either after 8 years. And it was in 2008 I found a wonderful teacher through Learning Strategies, who I already mentioned her name, Jetta Molly. And she taught a course called Pathway to Enlightenment. And almost from the first meditation with her, she's guided meditation, and she's clearly an enlightened being. Whose light is on. I always say, her light was on and it lit my light, and now my light is so bright it's my turn to turn on lights, and that's how it goes. It's passed on through teacher to teacher. Now, luckily, we have this new technology, or this technology like you're sharing, where you can reach a lot more people. It doesn't go one-to-one, or you don't have to be in person. You can actually share this information. It goes out in the airways, because after all, it's a vibration. The vibration goes out. The mere vibration of our conversation today is falling on the right ears. It's illuminating the right people. It's waking up the very people who need to hear it, bringing relief from their pain and suffering. So I know that's a long way around, but it starts with communing with this energy that hosts all things, and then it builds on that, and the book slowly builds chapter by chapter. It's a very easy read. It doesn't take that long, but don't let that fool you, because it is so profound, and the more you do it and the more you do the processes, the deeper and the deeper you go, the more layers are opened up to you, and the more you see your own divinity. It's in each of us. We each carry it, and it's time for humanity to wake up to this and to know these truths.
That is beautiful. I've had so many guests on. No, it's not a coincidence, because I don't believe in coincidences. This year, really, with it seems like to be a big theme this year for me and my show is one of inner work and world works in progress, right? And we get to choose. And this year I really realized, and I'm going to be 65, and I always tell people it's never too late to change, that I was carrying my hurt around like a badge of honor. And when I learned to let that go, and like resentment towards people and just like hostility I had towards people and situations, I felt so much better. And I feel better. And I just feel more positive. And people have noticed the difference. They've noticed the difference in how I talk and even how I look. And I really do believe that. I mean, the only education I have is I'm a licensed practical nurse, but I'm an empath, and I have intuitions that I cannot explain. And I have always gone by my gut instinct, and I've always been right. It's just things I can't explain, that I know things that are going to happen. And, we have, what's beautiful, Dr. Nancy, is that each one of us has the power to turn on that light, to get rid of that heavy baggage, and to be a bright light in this world. And I always say in my show, it's so funny that you said about being a light, to shine your light bright, to be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it. And if we would all work on ourselves, we become better people, and then it become a better world. That's why I look at it.
Absolutely, because Betsy, you say things like you can't explain. Well, quantum physics explains so many different things. I've had the most unbelievable experiences. Like my mom appeared to me, and I could see her, feel her. She put her arm around me. I could hear her, and I could even smell her. she came to me after she died. She put her arm around me, and, was comforting me. And I knew she was fine. And, like, the scientific world would say that cannot be possible. And I'm like, absolutely it can. You guys need to look at quantum physics. What is quantum physics? What is string theory? It says there's multiple dimensions within one dimension. And so, it is all coming back around. But the scientific world is one that is holding us back. But there's, quite a few people, quite a few scientists these days who are understanding it and actually affirming what you just said and what I just said about, things we cannot explain to the human senses, because it's not a human sensing type of thing. It's an inner sensing. It's using our spiritual senses, our inner senses, and quite amazing. I could tell you experience after experience. I mean, maybe that's my next book, is all the unexplained experiences or the mystical experiences that this scientist that you're talking to right now has had.
Yes.
And I never believed
that would be a great book. You could interview me. You can interview me for your book, and I could tell you about my experiences that I've had. And I know what you mean, that you felt your mom, and I know that you did, because I know that after Matt died, I felt him on my bed. I felt him touch me, and I felt him give me a kiss. And I know I'm not crazy, although some people would debate that. And I know I've gotten signs. It's something you can't explain, but that would be a great book.
Yeah.
I'll have you back on. You write that book, come back on. You could interview me for some signs. But it's really, there's things that you can't explain. And I want to thank you, Dr. Nancy Wiley, for coming on and writing your book and helping others. Do you by any chance counsel people, and how can people get in touch with you?
I do, and I'm happy to do that. They can go to my site, trustthedivine.com, and they could go to the coaching. I do master classes, which divide the book up into 3 1-hour sessions. I do those often. They can, sign up for one of those or email me. And they can get my book on Amazon. And if they do, I want to tell your listeners, if you do, please put the Amazon number that you get when you buy the book. It's available in both the Audible form, the Kindle, and the paperback form. And it's available all across the planet on Findaway Voices. So it's available everywhere. But put the number into divinetrustbook.com, and your listeners will get 4 free gifts. And they're really great. Some meditations with me, teaching them very short explanation of divine trust and how you trust in this source that's the energy that hosts all things, and how you can see it and commune with it. And then there's also a workbook from Marcy Scheimoff on Happy for No Reason, which is awesome. And then a good friend, Dr. Sue Morter, she does a healing meditation on that as well. That's one of the free gifts at divinetrustbook.com. So they can either go there or to trustthedivine.com and sign up to work with me.
Okay, so make sure I get your website, trustthedivine.com.
Trustthedivine.com.
Oh, trustthedivine.com. Okay. And what was the other one?
Divinetrustbook.com.
Oh,
so the name of the book is Divine Trust, A Practical Guide to End Your Suffering and Find Your Way Home.
Yes. Audience, I thank you for listening. Thank you for coming on, Dr. Nancy Wiley, and writing this book and helping others. There's a saying, I see this a lot, and support groups I belong to, we're all trying to walk our way home and some other people home. And I want to thank you for coming on, writing this book, and helping others, making this world a better place. And I just, I can't thank people enough, like Dr. Nancy Wiley, who come on my show to help people. And one of the reasons for my show is to provide people with resources to help them live a better life. And that's my mission and vision, is to help people. That's it. Mm-hmm. Not for fame or fortune, although that would be nice. I wouldn't turn that down, I'll be honest. But really, it's to carry on Matt's memory and helping people. And people need help. There's so many people out there that just need to know about resources to help them have a better life. And I feel like I'm being used as a vessel for that. So I'm very thankful to meet wonderful people like you, Dr. Nancy. I want to thank you. You're welcome. I want to thank the audience for listening. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and share the show to help other people and to help people live a better life. And I want to thank Jeannie White, who is the station manager, Pesha World Talk Radio, for producing the show, writing the blog. All the information will be in the blog, so please read the blog about Dr. Nancy Wiley and where you could purchase the book. And I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Pesha World Talk Radio, who makes this all possible. And I'm grateful and blessed to be a host. This is my 3rd year anniversary this month, so happy anniversary to Chatting with Betsy. And I learn from every guest, and it is so thrilling for me. I just love what I do, and I'm blessed and grateful that Jeannie White discovered me. I can't thank Jeannie White enough, and I always thank Lillian Caldwell, especially this anniversary month, for getting me out of my comfort zone. And folks, it's never too late to change. It's never too late to claim your power. Claim your power. Don't be a victim. Don't live in victimhood. Live in power. Live in your power that you have. People say, "Oh, Betsy, you're strong," or I wish I could be strong. It's not that I'm strong, but because we can't be strong 24/7. I've had my meltdowns. Trust me, I've had them. But we have the power to choose whether we're going to be living in misery and wallowing in self-pity, or we're going to be victorious and help shine our light and feel lighter and brighter. And that's what I choose, and I feel so much better. I really do. I got to tell the world. This is my megaphone to the world. I'm telling you from my own experience that you will feel better. And is life going to be perfect? Of course not. You're going to have problems? Of course you will. But you will be able to deal with them better. And, I've learned really a lot lately not to go to that place to beat myself up or negativity. It comes from childhood because I was the scapegoat of my family. So I thought everything was my fault. And I know it's not. There's things that happen that are not your fault. It's not your control. It's out of your control. And if something happens and it is your fault, then you know what? You'll learn from that mistake. You'll learn from it. And it's not. People think, I think, Dr. Nancy, I'm afraid to try something because I'll fail. Trying isn't failing. Mm-hmm. Lack of trying, that's where the failure is. Because you know what? When you try and make a mistake, you learn from it and you go forward. And that's how I look at it now. I make mistakes, and when I do my show, I roll with it. I'm not perfect. I'll admit. Mm-hmm. I never claimed to be, but, we learn. And I want to thank you again, Dr. Nancy Wiley, for coming on. Please go to Amazon.com. The book is Divine Trust, A Practical Guide to End Suffering and Find Your Way Home on Amazon.com. And I highly recommend the book. Thank you all for, again, listening. As I always say at the end of my show, in a world where you could be anything, please be kind and shine your light bright, and let's make this a better, brighter, beautiful world. Until we chat again, this is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio. Bye-bye now.